Welcome, everyone, to Chirping Zebras, episode 53. I'm Mark Riley, alongside Gino Binder Jr. and our producer extraordinaire, Josh Dolan, coming to you from the interwebs on Riverside. And before we get into it, we want to thank our sponsor, the Referees Crease, your one-stop shop for all your refereeing needs.
Is that close enough?
Oh, that's close enough, my friend. We can see that logo perfectly.
All right.
Also want to thank AOA Studios for all the editing and everything they do. We're going to be back in the studio in a couple weeks to tape live and in person. And we got a great guest coming up next week. And NHL legend Kerry Frazier is going to join us next week. And last week, yes, Carl Sasson was absolutely amazing. He did a great job, referee and a mental edge method coach. So that was pretty cool. If you haven't checked that out, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Unreal.
Yeah, and the college hockey is underway. My Colonels are doing well, Curry, and in the video we did, the reel we did about you picking your favorites and whatnot did all right on the socials.
Yeah, they did all right. And you know what? I did not I forgot about, the NCHC. You got the Western Michigan's having a year, Arizona's having a year. Never count an NCHC team out, because I'll tell you why. They're like the Big Ten. I mean, they in Hockey East, they beat the bag out of each other all season long, because they're playing against top 10 competition most every other weekend, and they're playing at that high level. So come tournament time, they're ready to rock and roll, and it's really fun to watch. And I think that's why you see the NCHC had such success the last few years, and now you're going to see the BCs and the Big Tens, because all those teams right now are in the a lot of those teams. Like, I think there's 6 right now in each conference. So it's going to be a fun tournament. It's always exciting. I mean, basketball's fun, but the hockey tournament, I can't, I get up for that one.
Definitely. UConn looks good this year too.
UConn's awesome. Really good. They're huge, and their goalie's enormous, and they're well coached. Kavanaugh is unbelievable coach. He's great to deal with on an officiating side of things. And he's probably smarter than us. They know the rules better than us.
That's awesome. Hockey East is doing all right. They have BC, BU, Maine, Providence, UMass.
I mean, UConn's right in the mix. I mean, don't count them out. They're really good.
Well, it's going to be good. March Madness, of course, basketball-wise, always fun to watch. But like you said, the hockey in the Frozen Four, it's just there's nothing like playoff hockey. I mean, let's face it. Whether it's NHL or college, it's always fun to watch.
And you know what? Like, the best part of the college tournament and even the basketball, right? It's one game elimination, so anything can happen. Like, you grip the stick a little tight in the first, you let up a quick one, and then now you're chasing the whole time. And it was I was fortunate to be a part of 2 of these comebacks from Notre Dame, and almost 3 of them, but the third one we had to take the goal down, which this is unbelievable. They scored with under 5 seconds left to win in the regional, and then in the Frozen Four in the same season. And then like a year or 2 later, I had them against North Dakota up in Albany, and they scored with no time on the clock, right, to win it. And we were in the replay booth for probably 25 minutes because one showed us that it was a good goal, one angle showed it was a bad goal, the clock was off. Give me the right clock, so we had to figure all that out, and that was a nightmare. So I almost had that 3 times with Notre Dame, scoring under 5 minutes, 5 seconds under 5 seconds to win a NCAA tournament game. Like, this stuff like that happens all the friggin' time, and that's what makes it great.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. Well, we're going to shift gears, and we're going to introduce our guest.
Well, before we get into that, Rouse, can I just shout out to my sister real quick?
It's, that's right.
Yeah, her big 40th birthday today. So happy birthday to my sister, Dorina. Dorina Burgess, 40 years old today. So happy birthday. Love you.
Nice. Happy birthday. That's a good milestone. 40 is
40 is a big one.
Yeah, it sounds old, but it's not. Trust me. 40 is like the new 20. That's what I say.
There you go.
At my age, you got to fucking say something.
Yeah,
All
right.
right. But happy birthday. I'm glad. Sorry about that. I forgot you wanted to give her
No,
a
we got it
shout
in.
out.
What are you sorry
An
about?
employee of the referees crease, correct?
Yeah, you can
Kind
say
of.
that.
Yeah.
No,
All
she
right.
does.
Well,
Yeah, she does the billing for us. But yeah, she's a school teacher, and she's going back trying to get her to be a principal and all that kind of stuff. So
that's awesome.
yeah,
A Binda, a principal. Never thought you'd hear that, huh?
yeah, right.
I'd like to see Aldo, your uncle, as a principal. He'd be
Yeah,
fantastic.
he
Um,
drives a bus.
yeah, barely. So we're gonna switch it today. I'm super excited because
Yes.
this is we like to not just cover hockey, right? We've done football. We've had guests on that had to do with different sports,
Comedians,
broadcasters, comedians. So and today our
marathoners,
guest,
runners,
oh yeah, we had Becca Peasy on, who's a marathoner. So
producers,
and
writers.
so tonight, yeah,
Oh no,
Jerry Thornton. You can just keep talking while I'm talking. But our guest, he's a two-time U.S. national boxing champion. All right, we're bringing in boxing, which is awesome.
yes.
And has 31 professional wins. He has he boxed in the Olympics, and I could go on and on. I have all these notes, but I'm just going to introduce him. Danny O'Connor, welcome to Chirping Zebras, my friend.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Danny.
How's it
Now,
going?
Oh, it's going
Now
good.
you-
I can't complain. I'm getting used to this stuff.
Now you live out. You're originally from Framingham, but you live out in Colorado.
Yeah, I moved over here back in 2018. Something about the landscapes has got me. You know what I mean? It's something different with the mountains and everything. And I had been out here for training camps, obviously, because of the altitude. The Olympic training centers here, so I had already spent a bunch of time here. Um, and I kind of was just making a move with the wife at the time. I had two kids, and we kind of just ended up here and set up shop. Now we got four kids. We're kind of rooted in the community. I started my company here, so like I'm involved with the business. So uh, we're here for good.
Awesome. Now
That's
we're about in
awesome.
Colorado.
When we first moved here, we moved like right by where Colorado Springs is, which is right by the Olympic Training Center.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then after like a little bit of time, we moved way up north into like the Fort Collins area. So it's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes from the Wyoming border.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time out at like the Air Force Academy. I still go out there once a
Yeah.
season. Go to Colorado College, and I've been at Denver University. I love it out there. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's a different way of life out here. It's you got the mountains and my oldest is always snowboarding, so we're always on the slopes. And the thing that people don't realize about Colorado is like it's sunny because you have the altitude and we're
Yeah.
so close to the sun. So like 315 days out of the year it's sunny. So sometimes we're out there on the slopes just wearing a t-shirt and pants. So like the weather's not bad. There's a lot of different activities and there's a ton of resources for the kids. So we live in a really good community, man.
I've golfed out there, and it snowed in the same day. It was like
For sure.
you know 50, 60 degrees, and then all of a sudden it just turned.
Yeah, the weather's crazy, and that always happens. And because you're close to the sun, it's like it'll snow, and then all of a sudden all the snow's gone in a couple hours, and you're back out there. Golf is huge here. I mean, there's probably 20 courses within 10 miles of my house right now. They're everywhere. So I try to get out there as much as I can. I do like golf a lot.
So you
I
said you're
remember.
out in the woods. Now, what do you have for pets?
I got four dogs right now. They're kind of left over. So when I first moved out to Colorado, I moved into this HOA, and I don't know. I didn't even know if we have these back home. I had no idea what it was. We moved out here, and it's like a little suburbia area HOA, and it's the craziest thing ever. Like you can't do anything. Like they tell you how to paint your house, and like you don't bring your trash cans back, and they give you a ticket. Like I was just like, I don't know. It's kind of like boxing. I kind of just signed the contract. I was like, whatever. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, I got all these rules, and I'm like, what the? I'm like, what is this shit? So the first way that I rebelled, I wanted ducks and like chickens, you know, as like farm animals, because obviously out here in Colorado, there's a lot of farm animals. There's a lot of mix of stuff. So I'm like, dude, this is cool. And it was like that big trend where like hobby farming was a cool thing. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get ducks. And then I found out that the ducks were not allowed by the HOA, and I was even more pissed. Like, hell no, they're not gonna tell me what I'm gonna do with my ducks. So I bought these ducks, knowing that the HOA wasn't allowed to have them. And I'm like, fuck it, we're just not gonna let the ducks outside. Nobody will ever know we have these ducks. Okay, so listen, hold on. Hold on. Listen, I went down a rabbit hole with this one. It gets better. So I'm like, all right, I had this basement that was unfurnished, like it was a normal house, like a three bedroom house, and the basement was just concrete. So I got this master plan. I'm gonna build this duck oasis in my basement, kind of like what you would think like you keep a gerbil or something, but it was used wall to wall, floor to floor, and I'm like, so I have all these different little compartments, and they have these little ramps that go over. So like one is like where the ducks are hanging out. Then you go over and there's like a little kiddie pool and they can swim. Then they go over and there's like cool stuff for them to do. So I'm like, and each one has like its own like the stuff like gerbils live on to like keep them in there. They had a little house. I mean, these ducks were living the life if they like just didn't need anything else. Then, at the time I was a first responder, so I'm taken away for 2 days, 3 days at a time without coming back. And I come back to these ducks, and people told me that they were gross. And I'm like, oh, it's a duck, whatever. And I come back, and I'm talking about these ducks were just shit like literally. So I didn't give up yet. I'm persistent. So I'm thinking like, that Showtime Dexter, like he's killing these people and he's like ceiling to floor, like, just like tarp. So I'm like, all right, this is what we got to do. So I'm tarping out all the walls so that like if shit goes up on the wall, it's going to hit the tarps. And I got a sub pump that goes from the little like duck pond up through the window well so that I can change the water, because I'm like, I can't bring these ducks outside. They're gonna jam me up. Like I can't let nobody know I got these ducks. So long story short, it lasted like a month before I was like, I would come home just horrified of these ducks and what they were gonna do to the basement, to the house, and I'm like, this is just ridiculous. So they went to a farm. They're well taken care of. They went with like a million other ducks, and they lived the duck life that they should have lived in. Luckily, they were only like, they were small when we got them. So like they're swimming in the bathtub. So it was like everything in the next story I'm going to tell you. It was a good experience at first until the farm life turned on you. Then it wasn't that good. So then I'm so like fed up with this HOA. I'm just like beside myself that these people can tell me like I can't paint my fucking house if you don't like the color. Like that's ridiculous. So I get out of there. And I go out into like the country, and it's like out here there's like city, then there's country, and one is like the city limits, but then the other one's the county. So there's like all these different like governing bodies. So I go out into the country. It's like up in the mountain, got a little piece of land. I have the right to do anything I want. I can have like livestock. I can do whatever I want. So now I'm like within the rights of what I'm allowed to do. I'm feeling better. I'm like, all right, we got to get some goats. Goats are cool. Like, I'm always looking at goats. The little sheep farm down the street. Like, every time I'm running to, like, exercise or training, I'm looking at these sheep. Oh, they're cool. We're going to get this sheep. Then I'm like, all right, out here they have these things called livestock dogs. They're, like, wild dogs that live outside with the farm animals, and they don't come inside. They just live outside. They tend to their flock. They take care of this. And I'm like, hell yeah, I don't want no like coyotes or nothing coming in and eating because, these things were amazing. At first, I loved them. So I'm like, this is great. So I get these two, and these dogs are huge. I mean, they're like wolf dogs. They're like 200 pounds. One's like half Pyrenees and half St. Bernard. So they're like really big dogs, and they're bred for that exact thing. They live with their flock. They take care of them. So I'm all set up. And the place I moved into already got like a little loafing shed, which is kind of like a barn. And this is amazing. Except I have no idea what I'm doing. Like they tell you straight up, like, hey, if you don't know what you're doing, this is probably not a good idea. Oh, no, it's a great idea. No problem. These goats are going to be my best friend. No problem. after about a year, it was just an absolute nightmare. Like the goat tip. So I bought male goats because I'm like, I think it would be better. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have to neuter them. I'm going to buy male goats. The worst thing I could have done, because if you don't band them or whatever they call it, they get, testosterone hits when they go into puberty. First of all, they pee on themselves. That's how they like mark themselves for the female. So they're peeing all over themselves. They have all this testosterone. Every time I walk out of the house, they're trying to like line me up. Like if I take my eyes off them for a second, they're charging me like with their horns, because they got horns. And so like it just became like they ate everything. They eat everything, like anything outside, like trees. It doesn't matter. They eat it. So it was just like I definitely was very irresponsible in the fact that I went into this, but I thought it wasn't going to be like that much. But it was crazy. Like, I had to be out there every morning, 4 a.m, and listen, this is the craziest part. Like, you go to like the livestock, we'll call it like the feed shop, okay? It's like the grocery store, but for animals, and it's like a farmer place, right? So you got these people showing up with like pickup trucks, and they're doing it the right way. I'm showing up with my little Hyundai hatchback, and I'm throwing like bales of hay in the back, and all the farmers are looking at me like, "What is this dude doing right now?" And like, it was a big learning curve to it. Like, there were parts of it that were cool. Like, I had to bottle feed them because they were young, so they like it was pretty cool at times. And like when they were real babies, it was cool. But like when they got older and they needed more, just like the ducks, they actually went to the same farm that the ducks went. They have a beautiful farm life now with other goats, and it was a big learning curve. It also made me never ever want to buy an animal for the rest of my life.
So
So that's my rant about farm animals. If you're from the city and you move over, it looks cool, but it will turn on you fast. Learn what you're doing first.
there's so much to unpack.
Dude, so much. So
Rather
much.
than go to Alaska and sack cap a moose. Never mind.
First, I know.
Oh, dude, and like,
first off, were the ducks flightless or were they flying around your basement?
I mean, they get up a little bit, and that's why the walls were just, like, they get up a little bit. They weren't like trying to like fly up the stairwell or nothing, and they were still young. We literally, we're talking about, I had them for a month before they went to the farm, so they were pretty young, but they got up. I mean, they try to spread their wings, so yeah, it's
I
just
found out
crazy.
there's flightless ducks. I found that out at a comedy show. This woman bought ducks, and she was like, they're flightless. She'd let them out in the front yard, and they wouldn't leave. So,
Oh yeah,
I'm
I mean, I
thinking,
knew that a lot.
did the HOA people know that you were a professional boxer? Like, I wouldn't give you a ticket for anything.
No, I don't. They didn't know anything. I mean, no, they didn't know anything. I didn't want them to know anything. I thought I didn't want to get in trouble for this. These ducks are going to give me some more tickets or something. So, I tried to. It was out of spite. Don't tell me what I can't do in my own house. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
there's a big learning curve. Now I keep all the animals out. So like, I actually ride horses all the time. Like, I enjoy horses. I ride. I'm like advanced. I'm not advanced where I can like tell you the different shit, like run or walk, but there's like different levels, like canter, gallop. I don't know the difference. I just know you're either walking or you're running, and that shit is scary. So I'm like more advanced. Like, I can ride the horse. I go out on my own on the trails. Like, I can put the saddle. Like, so that's something that I enjoy doing it. I do that a lot, but I don't own a horse that I have to take care of. Like, farm animals are legit. Like those farmers out here, like that is a full-time 24 hours a day job for them.
What's your horse's name that you ride?
The horse I ride is named Remy.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, he's a good horse. He's like, he's very well trained. Like, you don't really have to do much. You just have to learn how to ride. You have to learn the different stages, because running's a lot different than walking, and all the different commands. But once you like get that stuff down and you go out there, I go out there a lot. I try to go as much as I can. So it is cool. It is cool. It's like a whole different experience. Like, being from Boston, not really having any experience with like like, I wake up in the morning and some of these elk that come down, because they stay at the top of the mountain, the elk. And then when it gets cold, they kind of migrate down to the bottom and looking for food and water sources. So I wake up in the morning and there's 50 elk literally on the front lawn that I'm just like, whoa, this is crazy. And like, there's a ton of like, I literally live out in the mountains, so there's bobcats, there's you know, mountain lions. Mountain lions are the scariest, obviously. There's coyotes, there's the elk, there's bear, there's moose. I've seen a couple bears. So like, it for sure is a very different lifestyle than anything I've ever, you know, been used to back home in the city, for sure.
So we go to a dude ranch every summer. Like, well, all my friends from Southie, it's all city kids going up there, right? And
Yeah,
we ride, and it's friggin' awesome. My
yeah,
kids ride, and the like, so they have like different, like you said, different types. You walk, you can trot, you
yeah.
whatever, and then they got the intermediate where they just run in a straight line. It's not nothing too crazy, but like people get tossed all the time, and you don't hear about it, but you know, so I got convinced, like, this one family's been going up for forever, right? And they convinced me to go on the fast ride. So I'm like, whatever, I want to do it. I want to take off like full speed on a horse. Like, how cool is that, right?
Yeah,
So
hell yeah.
I was like, yeah, like when you do the walk, you're like, I want to see this thing take off, see what it can do. It's a friggin' horse, right?
Hell yeah.
So they sign me up. It's early morning. It's 8 in the morning, right? I'm hungover, whatever, right? And I get on this freaking thing. I got sneakers, and I'm holding on. And this thing, like, I'm slipping out of the heels. Like, I thought I was gonna bite it, but it was the scariest thing I ever did. Like, I thought I was really gonna get hurt.
Yeah, I mean, when your horse, and there's different levels, remember, so your
Yeah.
horse might have just been on like a little canter one as opposed to like a sprint, but it's a totally different animal. I mean, when you're just sitting on the horse's back and he's walking around, it's like real peaceful and chill. But when the horse starts picking it up, it is, you have to be in sync with that horse, or that saddle is gonna buck you 10 feet up in the air before you even know it. And that shit, I remember the first time I started running, and like you kind of feel yourself moving, or and it's a
I
scary
remember
feeling
standing up the
because
whole time because, like, if you sat, like you said, you were gonna get shot right off
yeah,
that thing. Yeah.
yep, it's all in the hips. You got to be in alignment with the horse to like to get it. But it's cool, man. It's definitely a cool thing that I like to do as much as I can get out there. And like out here, I mean, dude, there's some places in Colorado you can fucking ride your horse to like the town store and rein them up. You know what I mean? So like they all the like wild reserves here where you can go and have walking trails. You can bring your horse and you can trailer them, and then you can just go ride your horse on the trail. So like I'm not like riding it around a circle inside the fence. Like I go out to the trails, and they have one trail that goes, it's almost like 50 miles from one city to like three cities up where you come to a reservoir. So like it really is some cowboy shit, man. And they like the people have these trailers, right? It's an apartment in the trailer, and then they have their horses, and they'll go up to Wyoming where they're camping, and they'll camp out for like 3 nights with the campfire and their horses, and they'll just like have this cowboy lifestyle, and it's like
Beans out of
it's
the
pretty
hat.
cool. Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but it's cool, man. It's cool.
I got one horse experience that was horrifying. It was like 32 years ago. I go to Hawaii and with
Yeah,
my then girlfriend, who became my wife, who then became my ex-wife, and so we go horseback riding into this valley, and it's like this sacred valley where like king trained his troops and shit. It was cool, but one, I wore the wrong outfit. I had spandex shorts and a tank top on. I thought that made sense at the time. All right.
That's on a
I
motorcycle,
swear.
on a bike.
Yeah. No, I showed up. I was her alternative friend. And then so I get on the horse, right? And we go off and we're coming back and the saddle just starts tilting. So I'm
yeah.
I'm like literally tilted almost sideways. And I yell up to the girl, "Excuse me, is this normal?" Because I thought I was gonna swing around and be getting hit with that horse's balls in the head.
You'd be
And
like,
luckily,
where you, yeah.
she came back and grabbed onto that knob thing and
Yeah.
yanked me back and kept me from swinging around. And that was my horse experience. And
Yeah.
so I'd
Yeah.
rather take my chances with some fucking angry teenage goats.
Oh my God. I mean, you gotta know what you're doing to put the reins on and the halters and the saddles. And if you don't know what you're doing, that thing will definitely, I mean, you'll be, and they're not even, some of them aren't even on good. You would think like you put like a buckle where you put the thing through it. Some of them aren't even like that. They just wrap around each other and you pull them, right? And they have like I should know more about shit, but I don't. I don't even know names. When I go riding, I wear my Chuck Taylors. Like
That's
I'm still
awesome.
from the city. I don't care. Like I don't
Yeah, I
wear a
have
cowboy hat.
Yeezys
No,
on.
I actually wear a helmet. I wear a helmet, man, because that thing will mess you up if you fall off.
Yeah, I got
Do
made
you
fun of
do you
wearing
have
a helmet
cowboy
too.
boots? Do you have cowboy
Uh,
boots?
I mean, I got them because I was a poser for like 4 days just for my cowboy hat, but I quickly realized I'm not wearing this shit, man. So I wear my Chuck Taylors and my helmet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
horses aren't exactly.
listen. I went all in on being a cowboy for like a week. I thought it was like the best thing ever because it was just so different and cool, you know. And like it is a cultural thing out here. Like there
Mm.
are a lot of people that live that life, man. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And at the end of the day, a lot of it was just fun. Like majority of why I came out here was because I wanted my kids to be able to ride dirt bikes, to go out and play catch, to play baseball in the back, and not have to worry about squeezing in between the house because the house next to them was so close and being on the phone all day. Right? I wanted to give my kids kind of like that life I had growing up, but it's not everywhere anymore. It's not that. So I tried to like create that for them. So like the cowboy stuff was like real cool for me, but the the point of coming out here was I wanted to like allow my kids to be kids, go play in the dirt, go have fun, go play water guns without having to worry about cars hitting you or the internet taking So that's like really what the core of it was.
So you said like the Olympics kind of took you out to Colorado. Like, tell us about your Olympic experience and all that kind of stuff. USA.
My Olymp-
Sure.
the
Yeah.
Olympic experience was amazing, but at the same time, it was really hard to swallow. I was offered the spot as an Olympic alternate. That means that I was going to the Olympics as a training partner, but I wasn't going to compete.
Mm.
And I didn't like that because I'm a competitor, man. I can't even tell you about the fights that I've had that I've won, but I could tell you every one that I've lost, everything about it, how it affected me, how I came back from it. So like I don't ever want to lose anything. And I was a competitor. I wanted that Olympic spot. I wanted an Olympic medal. Like when I first put on the pair of gloves, I was not thinking about my first fight at the IBEW in South Boston a month later. I was thinking about like, oh shit, I'm going to the Olympics, man. And so it was a long process to make that team. You had to start regional. And I remember that tournament started in South Boston. You had to win there. Then you have to go to like a more regional where you win at Lake Placid. And so that's like New Jersey, New York, Boston. You have to win there. Then you go to a national tournament, which is everybody in the United States. Then you have to place top whatever there. Then you go to the Olympic trials. Then at the Olympic trials, you have to win. So, a long story short, the Olympian was a kid that I thought I won, and I thought politics had a lot that had to do with the decision. When I started boxing, man, you guys got to understand, I was never involved with the culture of boxing. A lot of these kids come through the JOs when they're 15 years old, 16, then they become men in the sport. I started boxing, first of all, when I was almost 19 years old, and I made the Olympic team 2 years later. I didn't know anyone. I wasn't in none of the cliques. Nobody knew me. I wasn't involved in the culture. So, I, I thought that I was a better representative of the United States to fight in the Olympics. But it didn't work that way. He got the spot. And so when I went to the Olympics, it was a great experience, right? Because they didn't bring all the alternates. They only brought two of us, I think, me and Sean Porter. If you know Sean Porter, I mean, he's a multiple time world champion, had a ton of success on the elite level. That dude's the man, and I can vouch for like who he is as a person. He's a godly man. He was awesome. Half the time I didn't even want to go out in the Olympics. He was making me go out because he liked to watch me dance and drink some beers. You know what I mean? So like he was the man. But they didn't bring everybody. They only brought me, him, and I think maybe one other person. But so I got to go be a part of this event, and the boxing team went first, and they left last because they gave you some time in between these fights. So like I was at the Olympics for a while, a couple months at least, living in China, and it was in Beijing when I went. So like I got to watch the events. I got to like mingle with these athletes like Michael Phelps and Jenny Finch. I got to like see all these people, be a part of it. I the only thing I didn't get to do is compete. And the reason why it was hard to watch is because literally like a couple weeks before the Olympics, I was on the USA team at that time. So like, whenever USA is competing against Russia, right, it's going to be a dual meet, whether we go there or they come here. We represent USA, they represent the other country, we compete and we fight. So I was on the USA team. So I was going to England the whole year. The Olympic team was created the whole year before the Olympics. So for that whole year was one of the best years I ever had in the amateurs. And first of all, the amateurs was 100 times better than professionals, no question. And we could talk about that later. Whenever a business first and a sport second, it is what it is. But in the amateurs, that whole year, I was just on the USA team. I was living in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center. My whole life was just training, competing, training, competing. So like I went to Russia, I got to compete against Russia, and I went to England. And so it was real prideful because, from where I came from and everything that happened in my life to be in that position, I was like, this is absolutely a dream come true. I fought Dominican Republic a couple of weeks, maybe a month, not even before the Olympics. And I had to fight this kid, Felix Diaz. He was my weight class. And I smoked him, man. It must have been like 22. It was 22-3, or it was like a blowout. The score was drastically different, and I won that fight. And then, fast forward a month later, I watched that kid win a gold medal at the Olympics. Then I'm sitting in the crowd watching him win. And so, as a competitor, I'm thinking to myself, like, damn, I just beat that kid decisively. That should have been my gold medal, you know what I mean? And that's not the way that I always think because, it happens as it happens and I moved on and I had a great professional career. But like, I always look back and I wonder, like, man, I just beat that kid. I watched him win a gold medal. If only, right? It's always that. When it doesn't go that way as an athlete, if only. And I'll never keep going down that road of if only because it never ends well. But like, there is always that glimpse of like, man, because I wanted that gold medal, just like I wanted that world championship belt. Like finances and stuff and like clout and fame, like I never really cared too much about that stuff. It was like the accolades. Like I wanted that Olympic medal. I wanted that national championship to say I was the champion of United States. I wanted that WBC green belt to cement myself in the history of boxing, right? Those are the things that I was working for. Those are the things that like, as a competitor, I wanted those. Like, you're going to go get, the World Series, like you get the trophy. Like, those are the things that competitors want. And, like, unfortunately, I was that close to an Olympic medal, that close. So there's a lot of positive upsides that from looking back, but then there's a lot of things that I'm like, damn, So it worked out the way it worked out. But it was a great experience. I mean, being at the Olympics, watching the events, living at the training center, like going out, like Budweiser. Think about like a BJ's warehouse. Budweiser bought a warehouse like that. It was only for USA. You have to have your credentials to go into it. They had, Budweiser on tap, no bartender. You just go up. It was like a nightclub. All the USA athletes could go and mingle and like stuff like that. It's like the Olympics. It's not just like you go and do your sport, but everybody in the world is coming. There were so many different people from different areas. Everything's popping and happening. And like, it was just a wicked, amazing experience, especially a kid coming from Framingham that probably should have been dead or in jail. Like, it was like life altering to be like, wow, this is amazing.
Well, you know what? I was going to bring up the fact that you beat Diaz because he won the gold medal, but that year, that was 2008, and you accomplished something that only two other boxers did. You won the 2008 National Golden Gloves and the U.S. National Amateur, and check out these names. There's only two other guys who did it: Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns. So you know what? Not for nothing, but those are pretty good names to be a part of.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, and that's what I mean. Like, I don't look back at anything in my career and say, like, oh, man, like, I wish something was different. Like, it all happened the way that it happened. And I did those So first of all, to have my name in that company is pretty special because we're the only three people, or we were the only three people in history of boxing that has ever done that. And I did that after only learning how to. I literally only started boxing like less than 2 years or 2 years prior to that. So like that year was my year. You know, I showed up, I performed mentally, physically. Winning those back-to-back nationals was incredibly hard because a national tournament isn't like you go and you fight and then you come back. You fight every single day for 5 or 6 days, and you have to weigh in every single day for 5 or 6 days. So you come, you compete against the best kids in the United States, you fight, then you have to go and make weight all night. Then you have to wake up and weigh in and do it again. And each step up the rung is a better fighter because now you're getting into kind of the top of the triangle till you win, right? So to do that by itself is incredibly challenging. There's a lot of people that will never be a national champ, but to do it 2 times in 1 year, I think was a pretty challenging feat. And I was voted outstanding boxer of the tournament. So that means out of all the weight classes, out of everyone that competed, they voted me as the one that performed the best. So like I have a lot of accolades on my resume that I am really proud of. I mean, you know, winning in Colorado, my mother was sick. She had a little stint with cancer. That was like her first time she traveled. So she watched me in person win that nationals. So like there's a lot of things I look back and I'm like, you know, boxing allowed me to do this stuff. Like one time I threw out a pitch for the Red Sox, first pitch, you know, being the main event at the Boston Garden. Like boxing is the platform that allowed me to do these things. On top of the fact that if you know my, you know, my high school career and everything that went on with my life, I shouldn't even be here right now. Boxing literally changed my life and my whole existence on this planet from where I was to where I was going. And because of that, like I always have to be grateful for what this sport gave me and the people that allowed me to meet and the different experience that I was allowed to have. Like if it wasn't for boxing, I wouldn't have been on the field after when the World Series and the Red Sox won the World Series and whenever it was 2012. Literally, that was because of boxing. They knew me because of boxing. I was on the field when they won. Everybody's cheering, and I'm trying to rip up the grass on Fenway and put it in my pocket. I'm like, dude, this fucking Fenway Park. I'm taking the grass. You know what I mean? But that's because it was different for me. I'm from there. So, like, I've been going to Fenway since I've been a little kid with my dad. I remember Roger Clemens he wasn't even in the game. He'd be running out from the dugout in right field, you know, jumping on the fights. Like, Fenway was something special to me. So it's like, you know, if it wasn't for boxing, none of these opportunities would have ever happened. Like main event at the Boston Garden, that's like, you know, one of the top three on my list of like things that I've, you know, ever done, excluding anything that has to do with my family, you know?
I mean, how cool is that?
So-
Your home city, you're the main event. Like, you know, I mean, that's got to be right up there with anything. I mean, that's pretty cool.
For sure. For sure. It was, man, once I hooked up with Ken Casey from the Dropkicks, like he was so supportive and such a role model and such a good guy. That's when like stuff broke apart. Like because of him and his promotion company that came into boxing, that's what happened with the House of Blues. You know, we went to Aganis a couple times. We went to you know, the Boston Garden. We went to the Gillette Stadium, which was the only boxing match ever at Gillette, right? So like that stuff wouldn't happen without boxing, but also these really influential people that were around me that were doing good things, that were supporting, that believed in the mission, and that were putting these things on. And like for sure the Garden was like, you know, a dream come true. Like I had to keep pinching myself. They're like, holy shit, I'm the main event. Like these people, you know, these whatever 14,000 people are coming to watch me. This is crazy. But even the ones that were lesser, like the House of Blues, like they were still amazing because like the fans from Boston support in a different way. And I've seen it in the different areas and traveling, like the fans were just wild and they were always supportive and they were always there. And like, they would be chanting and like, you know, I'm coming out to like the bagpipers, like that little stint where a lot of my fights were focused in Boston to like kind of build a following. That's the most meaningful part of my career because to me, it was the most meaningful. Like when they would be calling oh, let's go to Madison Square Garden. I'm just like, okay, I don't give a shit that much. Like, you talking about the Boston Garden? Yeah, let's go. You know what I mean? So like, a lot of my experience were based off like meaningful stuff to me. Like, oh, let's go to Vegas. Yeah, I mean, okay, let's go to Vegas. But if you call me and we're like, hey, you know, Aganis Arena tonight in front of Boston, your home crowd. All right, cool. Let's do that one. Like, I based everything off I did like off the experience and like what meant stuff to me. And so like that little stint in Boston with Ken was absolutely the best part of my professional career because professional is a different animal, man. It's definitely a business first, a sport second, and you know, there was a lot of the time that I didn't even want to be a professional fighter. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like that in the amateurs. In the amateurs, it was all fun. You're traveling with your friends on the national team. You're fighting other countries. You're hanging out. It's just competition. Like, you're not worried about the brutality of it. It was amazing. And so that definitely shifted once I turned professional, and I had to look at it in a different way.
So what I'm interested in is, Danny, you played soccer in high school, right? Big soccer
Yeah.
guy. How did you find boxing? Because you said you found, you didn't start till really 19, which reminded me of a former guest of ours that was a boxer, Dougie Smith. He was a boxer, but found hockey later on about that age. What brought you to boxing? What pushed you into that sport?
Well, I mean, I grew up an all sport athlete, right? Because that was the culture back then. Like my kid goes to baseball and it's so sports specific now. They're in the wintertime they're indoors at DBAT, and then it's just that. Like these kids are getting so nasty, so advanced at an early age. But for me, it was everything. I'm doing track, I'm doing Pop Warner, I'm doing soccer, I'm doing baseball, and I always had a higher level of play. Like even when my friends are making like double A, I'm making majors and I'm on the travel team. So I was always a good athlete and I'm playing everything. Then when I got to high school, the first time I ever stepped on a wrestling mat was my freshman year of high school. And I fell in love because I felt like that sport was made for me. And not only was it made for me, that hook was in me so hard. From the second I woke up to the second I went to sleep, every night I was on a wrestling mat. And I was going to Iowa to wrestle for Dan Gable. I slept in an Iowa singlet every single night. Like that is what I was
That's
doing. There
awesome.
was nothing that was going to stop me. And so I wrestled varsity my freshman year, right? I pinned the senior captain, made varsity, wrestled, lost, and then next year I was so distraught about that loss that I then won states Division 1 my sophomore year. So 2 years after ever getting on a wrestling mat, now I'm a Division 1 state champion. And I wasn't only wrestling like during the season, right? I'm doing club, national team. I'm traveling all over the world, just like boxing, right? I'm wrestling Finland. I'm doing all this stuff. So literally, it is life. And I have not even viewed boxing the same as I did wrestling. I have never loved something as much as I did as wrestling. And then after I win states, um, it gets taken away. You know, you got to understand this is not like a hockey. It's not like a baseball. I have to make a weight class every single time that I do anything. So there is a big shift on your performance. There's a big shift on your training, but there's a huge aspect that's always above your head with the scale. And so not only was I training every single day of my life, from the second I stepped on the mat, now I'm making weight every day. And I have some horror stories about weight. And I do some keynote speaking like to NCAA now about like college wrestlers and like the terrific like weight management tactics because we'll talk about later. I almost killed myself obviously in 2018, but at that age when you're 12 years old and you're making a weight class and you don't know anything about what you're doing, you just know that, hey, I can't let anybody in because if they know what I'm doing, maybe they're going to take wrestling away or they're going to take it away, right? So I think I was at the most risk I've ever been when I was a young kid. I was uneducated. I'm taking pharmaceutical laxatives on a nightly basis. I mean, I put myself at so much risk during the year when, I'm growing. Like these are my most formidable years. My hormones, like, we're talking 6 months where all I'm eating is 6 saltines a day and a half a couple ounces of water, right? Because I'm thinking that that's what I got to do because I got to make this weight. I got to compete. I'm going to NCAA. I'm going to wrestle at Iowa. Like it doesn't matter, right? And I'm doing it in behind closed doors because no one can know this stuff, or they're gonna take away wrestling. But ultimately, what happened was, I'm skipping school when I'm a junior in high school. So think about 14 years old. I'm skipping school. I'm wearing a sauna suit all day. I am doing nothing but trying to cut weight. And then my grades don't make it. So now when your grades don't make it, we all know the eligibility, right? Now that you can't wrestle. So things started to go south where now I'm getting suspended for 2 weeks and I can't wrestle. And I'm like trying to catch up. And then I get back a little bit. And then ultimately, the last time I ever stepped on a wrestling mat was my middle of junior year. And once it was gone for good, I exploded. I was angry at the whole world. All I wanted to do, my extreme focus was on the future. And now it was not possible because you don't make the grades, you can't get recruited, you can't go to that college, you can't wrestle there. I can't be an NCAA champion anymore because they took it away from me. And that was my mentality. Like, yeah, I took it away from myself, but also, when your day is fixed with trying to make weight all day because you're looking for a bigger goal. I mean, there were some days I went to school and I couldn't even keep my head off the desk because I hadn't drinking water in 2 days. And like, I couldn't do that work. And I was so angry that like, I viewed it as like, I'm doing this for wrestling. How are you going to take that away from me? But they didn't know. I didn't even know. I was a 14-year-old kid, right? So once they took that away, we're talking about overnight. Like, you got to understand, guys, I hadn't even smoked marijuana. Like I drank a couple times, but I was an athlete. Overnight, out of school, I left home. I got in trouble 22 times, criminal trouble, before I was even an adult. So now I'm going to court and I'm like, I can't make bail. I don't have any money. So I'm shackled at the bottom of the courthouse waiting all day to go up with all these other people that are coming in from their court date from Billerica. And, I'm abusing substance. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. There's places where like I'm taking this, I'm taking that. There could have been 7 chemicals in my body at any given night, and I don't even know what they are, right? So it's like I am on this crazy, crazy path to either die, go to jail, and not caring about anything, right? Because like the way I look at it is like you have two kind of things. Like when you get angry, you could lash out at other people, right? You could hurt other people because you're so angry, or you could hurt yourself. And that's what I kind of did. I was just hurting myself. I was so angry. I wanted the whole world to know it, and it didn't matter who you were. No one was gonna curve this. I was just exploding, and so it happened overnight. I was a merit student, which is basically honor roll, my sophomore year, and in junior year I failed out of everything, all Fs, and I dropped out of school. So that's how fast it went, like overnight. And so the reason why I have so much like gratitude towards boxing is like I literally was on a path where I was either going to die, end up in jail, end up in some sort of crazy altercation that someone else was going to kill me, and I didn't care. And then all of a sudden I found this boxing gym, and it was a boxing gym in Framingham. It was a PAL, and I went in, and they had this old guy in there. His name was Pablo, and think about Mr. Miyagi. If you can picture Mr. Miyagi in your head, this is what this guy was. And he was from Puerto Rico. He spoke like broken English. So sometimes like I'm like, all right, yeah, I don't know what you're saying, but I'm loving it. Let's go. And so like we're trying to like communicate the best we can. But this guy he worked at the hospital across the street, and he worked housekeeping, and he dedicated time with me. He would show up before work, he would show up at lunch, he would show up after work, and I would just, I would get myself to the gym. I'd walk there, I'd run there, whatever I had to do, I got myself to the gym because I was an athlete at like everything I did in those 2 years was out of character. Like I'm not doing drugs. Like I'm an athlete. Like I'm a competitor at the highest level. And so everything in that year, getting in trouble, like I was never in trouble in my life. And so everything in that year was out of character. And when I got back in the gym and he was spending time, and now I'm off the street. Now I'm not doing any of this stuff. Now I'm not getting in trouble. Then I'm boxing. Now I'm starting to get in the newspaper, and people are like seeing me in a good light, right? I'm in Sports Illustrated, and now everyone's like viewing me in a good light. Like, not only that, all these other kids in the community are looking at me and seeing what I did and how much I changed, and they're like, "Wow, man, I could do this too." Like, maybe the environment doesn't dictate who you are, right? So, like, when I got into boxing, it was competitive again, right? I could work towards something. I knew what I was doing. It was very similar to wrestling in the individual sport. I was getting a lot of shine in a really good, positive way that was making me proud, and it got me off the street. Like, 18 years old, all my friends are going to all these colleges to, play sports, to go on with their life. And I'm going to, open cases at this courthouse and this courthouse, just hoping to God that this isn't the time that the judge is telling me I'm getting a jail sentence, right? Where now I'm, going to be up in Billerica for a year. Who knows, right? And that was such a reality because all these kids I was with, like my best friend went for a year, the other one for 2. Like, so I was just on a path that, like, I don't know if an individual or a mentorship type of thing could have pulled me off this path. I was so angry. Like, I was so angry at the world. And so boxing was that thing that pulled me off this path. And not only that, it literally, trajectory of my whole life was changed, right? All of a sudden now I'm on the Olympic team. I'm going to the Olympics. I'm around all these other athletes. And then I turn pro and have an amazing professional career of having all these experiences that, like, you just don't get. And it's like, that's why I will always have the gratitude for boxing, because it literally saved my life in a time that I'm not sure anything else could have.
It's just an amazing story. And, one thing, you find the boxing and one thing that struck me, I guess, is the making the weight, and something
crazy.
that other people, like hockey guys and football guys, we don't understand that. We always try, like I try to be as big as I could, right? When I played, because that's what you needed. Making weight is something that is just so foreign to a lot of other athletes, and you don't realize the torture that wrestlers or boxers, MMA now, go through to make that weight. It's like almost counterintuitive. You're hurting your body to try to compete at the highest level, and that's stuff that you don't even think about. I mean, I wouldn't. You look at these athletes; they're in great shape, but you don't realize that they might be eating 2 saltines a day. Like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and you know what, the weight tactic, the weight management, not just in my amateur career, but all the way through my professional career, it's a crazy tale that you could never suspect. And you're not even talking about in the moment. I mean, there's been times when I've had to take 15 pounds off in one day, right? And that's crazy by itself, right? But we're not even talking about in the moment. People don't realize when you're making weight, like, yeah, in the moment, it might be a crazy, extreme weight tactic that jeopardizes your life and almost kills you, like in 2018 for me. But what people don't realize is nobody thinks about the future. What is all this stuff doing to me now? How's it going to affect me later? And that's something I didn't think about. That's something I did not think about it until I got into that later situation. And I was like, oh, fuck, man. Like, because when you're abusing stuff, it doesn't matter if it's fucking Oxycontin or alcohol or porn or food. When you're abusing something, when you're reinforcing habits, when you're reinforcing coping mechanisms in your body, it doesn't matter what that end thing is, man. Stuff can come back to bite you in a very, very, very serious way. So, like, I didn't think about any of this stuff. Like, yeah, okay, I know alcohol is bad. Like, I grew up in Boston. There's a bar in every corner. I get it. Like, I know heroin's a bad thing. I see people that have had problems with substance, and, like, yeah, I know it. But who's going to think that food could be one of these things that cripples you if you don't keep it under control? Not me, right? It was part of my career, right? The scale is my career. It is my career to make weight. You don't fight. you don't make any money, and you don't have a career if you can't do that step first, right? I started boxing at 140 pounds, and I held that weight until now. I fought that weight my whole life. The only time that I didn't fight that weight is because I had so many issues that were related to food and the scales and all this other stuff that it was a up and down battle that ultimately almost took my life in 2018. I mean, look at this, right? We're talking about these accolades, and you sports guys, you will know this, right? You work your whole life to get to the NHL, to get that cup, right? I worked my whole life to fight for that WBC World Championship belt, the green one, the most iconic one, the one with the gold trim. It's got the fucking pictures of Ali on it. Like every single night since I turned professional, I thought about that moment, that belt, and I sacrificed and worked for more than a decade for that moment to come. And when it came, 2 hours before it became true, instead of going into the fight, I went to the ICU and I watched in front of the whole world, right? Because it was on ESPN, in front of the whole world. I watched me get bashed by the announcers for not making weight. I watched my career ruined in an instance. And I watched that instance where I could have cemented myself in the history of boxing slip through my fingertips. 2 hours before it became true. And so I always tell you, I look back at stuff and I'm like, man, the what ifs. I look back and I say, oh, the what if. I don't wish it to be different. That moment changed my life and probably saved my life. But that was a really hard one to swallow. I mean, think about that, right? I'm in the ICU. After 2016, I fought at Lowell Memorial and I got knocked out. I got clipped. First time I've ever been down. First time I've ever been knocked out. First time I've ever been off my feet. I've never even been dropped. And I'm knocked out cold. My wife was ringside. After that night, she would never go to another fight again. She would never watch me. So it was like Cinderella Man. Every time I come back from the fight, first thing I do, I call my wife, hey, I'm safe. I'm alive. I'm okay. I won. I can't explain to you how hard that conversation was from the ICU room, talking with all these needles and shit in my arms and, having to pick up that phone and call my wife and say, I'm not okay. I didn't win. And not only that, we're not getting paid because I didn't get in the ring. My career is ruined. And everything that I've sacrificed, that we've sacrificed for the 10 years, just went down the toilet in a matter of a heartbeat. Oh, yeah, and I almost died. I died for a second, but, because there was good first responders, now I'm alive. So that was one of the hardest conversations that I've ever had to have with my wife, that I've ever had to have in my life, ever.
That's amazing. And you
In
fought
a crazy way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's amazing in the fact that you had to go through that, but you were able to come out of it. I mean, that's it's a testament to you. I think the competitiveness, right? You had a different fight to fight, and you won that one too, even though you weren't able to fight the one you wanted to fight. It just incredible. And you fought at light welterweight, right? Was that your class?
Yeah, light welterweight or junior welterweight, they call it that too. In my later careers, when my eating issues became like a way more serious issue, not just in the ring or in the sport, but in my life, I couldn't make that weight. So I didn't make weight for the Garden. That almost didn't happen, and it wasn't because it was because my weight issues were so severe and so deep rooted that had nothing to do with just the weight tactics. There was a lot of back end issues that I had in the kitchen that were just uncontrolled. And I couldn't understand them at that time, especially as a guy. All right. Because it's, what's an eating disorder? That's the first question I had. What the fuck is an eating disorder? I know what happens when I drink 30 beers and end up in Canada and I don't know where I am. The fuck is an eating disorder, right? So there was a lot of issues, dude. I know. Hey, listen, I tell you that because that story really happened. Sunday afternoon, next thing I know, I'm in Montreal, and I'm like, what? So, but anyways, dude, and what you were saying, listen, this isn't like baseball where I'm going to go throw a couple baseballs and I'll catch a couple baseballs. If I haven't eaten, like maybe I'm just have a little lack of energy, right? If I haven't eaten in X amount of time, which could have been days, right? There's times when, you know, I haven't eaten in days. I still have to go train multiple times a day. And I'm not just like hitting the ball around or kicking something. I got to go fight. People are trying to take my head off. And the more I got up the level, when I went to training camp with Coach Ronnie Shields in Texas, he's elite. He had like Tyson, Holyfield. There's nothing unelite about that camp. So like Jamal Charlo, the Charlo brothers, like these people are savages on the most elite level. And I got to go in and spar them. So like you're not eating, if you're not drinking, like how good, like you got to think every single one of my fights that you've ever had me or seen me, it probably wasn't my best, because how can you possibly perform at your best or even train at your best when you're just not optimal and you're not feeding yourself and you're not energized? And now I got to go in and fight these people, right? So it's not like, they're trying to kill you, they're trying to take your head off. So like there wasn't a ton of weight advancements when I was young, obviously not. There's a lot more now, but like when you come into the sport, especially against a scale at an early age, like think about like your middle school wrestlers, right? Like, my kid came home the other day wrestling and he's talking about, he was over at some tournament and he saw some kid talking about laxatives and dietary pills. Like, bro, you're 12 years old. You shouldn't be taking any of that shit. Are you kidding me? You're putting your life at risk. You're putting your heart at risk. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And that's why the second my kids said he has to sign up for wrestling, I was like, oh God, here we go, man. You know what I mean? And like, I'm on him, every single aspect on him. I'm like, you guys got to understand, and this goes to every single person listening to this. Any type of combat sport, the biggest threat is not getting beat up. It's that fucking scale. And if you don't have the right approach to it and you don't have mentorship around it and education, that thing can come back and kill you. And it's a very sneaky way that it happens because it's not in the culture. It's not talked about a lot. And it's, everybody eats. Like, it's not like, you're drinking 100 beers and like all of a sudden you can't stop and, everyone can see that you're a disaster, right? But the scale will sneak up on you in such a serious way that all of a sudden it's just this life and you're like, holy shit, how did I get here?
This has been awesome. Before we let you go, Danny, I got to ask the question, who in your mind is the greatest boxer ever?
The greatest boxer?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's.
I know it's a shitty question whenever you ask who's the greatest.
Well, it's a loaded question, right? Because right, we said boxing's a sport. It's also an industry. It's a business. So like, who's the best businessman? Maybe Floyd Mayweather. He's a billionaire, right? From the sport, from everything he got from the sport and spiraled into something else.
Pure boxer wise, though. When
pure
you just
boxer
look at boxing ability, is it Ali? Is it Foreman? Is it
Jake Paul?
Listen,
no.
the whole culture of the sport of boxing is completely different from when I grew up. I do think that Dana White now making that announcement yesterday with Turk from over there in Saudi, that the whole sport is going. When I came up, it was a certain way, right? You're gonna fight, you're gonna make weight, you're gonna fight, it's kind of hard nosed from what it used to be. Then the whole culture changed into the YouTube aspect, where now it's more of like a WWF event where there's going to be a lot of money to be made, and it's YouTube, and it kind of changed a little bit. Now Dana White making all these announcements yesterday where he's going to be the main guy in promotions and he's going to build his own league related to boxing. I think the whole culture of the sport is now going to shift again. And I do think that now it's going to be a little bit, he's talking about eliminating belts. There's going to be one belt, one champion. You are the best or you're not. And so I think the whole culture of boxing is now going to change again. So we'll have to see. But in terms of, I think Floyd, and I say that because I don't necessarily agree with what how Floyd lives as a, I don't relate to him outside the ring. I'll say that. Okay. I don't relate to him outside of the boxing ring, but inside of the boxing ring, my ideal fighter is somebody that's not only going to win, not only going to win decisively against people at the highest level, but they're going to be the person that takes the least punishment possible. And that is the true art of boxing. Not only are you going to be nasty and score points and win, but you're not going to get hit. And so to me, someone like Floyd, I do think he might probably be, in my opinion, the best fighter ever because he had that aspect. Not only is he winning at the highest level, not only is he producing the most money at the highest level, not only is he, his skills are out of this world, but he's not taking any punishment because his defense is so good, his skills are so good. And at that level, you got to understand, and I'm sure you do from you guys that are athletes, like, your skills, everyone has amazing skills at that level. It's not so much skills, it's the intangible things, your adjustments, how fast can you make them, how fast can you think, your vision, your understanding, your forecasting in the future. Those are the things at that level that are going to kind of separate you, because at that level everyone's nasty. It doesn't matter who you are, everyone's got this skill that they're going to be good. It's the little things that are going to separate you. And I think for me that is Floyd. And like I said, I don't subscribe to him as a person outside of the ring. I think I have different views and I live a different life. But inside of the ring, man, he was something special. And that's lost on a lot of people, because a lot of fans of sport of boxing, they just want to see that hockey fight. They want to see no mindset behind it. Just let's throw as many punches and hurt people. But the real aspect of fighting is not that. It is harder not to get hit than it is to go out and try to just hit somebody. So I think because Floyd can encapsulate all those things at once against the best people in the world at the highest level in front of the biggest platform on TV in front of the world, I think that for me, he probably takes the best performer of all time for sure.
The McGregor fight, though, when he fought Conor McGregor.
Joke.
Yeah, and I think, see, here was my thing. All right, fine, you boxed him, but now you got to get into the octagon with him. Like, I know he never would, but he had a definitive advantage over him in the boxing ring. Now, fight him in his home turf. That's what I would have liked seeing. Because I think McGregor would have fucking pummeled him.
Oh, I mean, there's no question. You can't just. First of all, if you've ever been hit by a punch, you'll understand the power behind it. But when you get hit with a kick, that's a different type of animal. You can't just go into something you've never done and expect that you're going to know. And I'll tell you a story. So I was like, I hadn't been in the ring. I don't know what I was doing, but it had been a long time. And so I'm sparring, and I go to a jiu-jitsu gym and like a Muay Thai gym, and like I'm sparring, and I'm like, this is amazing. And all of a sudden I got kicked in my face, right in my jaw. Didn't see the thing coming, had no idea. And I was like, what just happened, dude? You can't just go into something that you've never done and expect that like there isn't going to be a learning curve. And when you have someone like Conor McGregor who knows how to kick, and those kicks are going to paralyze you, like I don't think it would. I think it would have been just as one-sided as the boxing match. Like, I never gave Conor McGregor a chance in that fight, not against Floyd, not without the kicks, not without the other tools that Conor's used to having. I think that's why I say it was a joke. Like, maybe Conor puts up a fight and scores a couple punches, but Floyd was winning that fight all day. There's no way. I don't ever think he was at risk. I just think that, it was about the show. How much money did they produce equally? How much money did the event produce? Like, I think it was a show. And that's where you look at, like, someone like Jake Paul that then comes into this culture. Yeah, they're fighting and it's about the fight, but it's more about the event. That's why I call it like a WWF style. It's more about the event. It's more about the show itself, the entertainment. And, that's what I think Conor McGregor and Floyd was. There was such build up to it. There had been nothing like it before. They went on this world tour promoting it, and Conor was so attractive in his culture, Floyd in his. So it's like, those two elephants coming together, the whole world wanted to see it. But I don't at once ever think Floyd was at danger of losing that boxing match, period. And he was smart enough to know I'm not going to get in the octagon because I'm not going to get kicked or choked or something else. So we never got to see that because that's exactly what happened if it went to Connor's realm. You know what I mean? And so, that's what it was from the whole time. For the whole time, I never thought it was anything different.
I so wanted Mike Tyson to knock the Jake Paul out. I knew, and to me, that fight was a joke too. I
You know
think
what? It
Tyson
was. And
didn't fight
I
like he
thought,
could.
no, and I was pulling for Tyson because it doesn't matter when you're a real fighter. Like it doesn't matter. You're 10 years older and you're fighting someone that's not technically a real fighter at that level. You always have that puncher's chance. I mean, it's boxing. But after watching, I watched that and I was sad for Mike. You know what I mean? Like I
But
didn't
didn't it
like
look like
watching it.
he didn't like you watched him training and he was a
Yeah.
fucking beast. Then he goes in the ring and he's acting like, this old man. I just think the fix was in. I don't know. I think
Yeah,
if
I mean,
Tyson really hit him, it would have been good night.
yeah, I think if you ever wanted to call something WWF, that was it. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't the Mike Tyson I remember, nor did it even look like he was trying to be, right? Like,
Right.
and that was the whole thing with the whole fight. Like, he kept like kind of getting himself in position, and you'd be like, "All right, come on, Mike, do something," and he just never took it out of first gear, right? He never went to second gear, third gear, and you just kept hoping, like, "Come on, get there, Mike," but he didn't. You know what I mean? And I thought it was sad to watch, and I'll tell you this, as a fighter, knowing what it's like to be in there, knowing what it's like to be at the top, but then also coming back and having everyone count you out, like the look in his eyes walking to the ring kind of told everything to me. And so like, I didn't think Mike even wanted to be there. Like it didn't look like to me it was like a person that was like excited about like going into the ring and doing this. Like it's or even like amped up or in an angry way or like the competitive way. To me it just looked like a guy that was walking in there and
To get a
um
paycheck.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, yeah, yeah, yeah,
greatest
I
fight
mean
ever.
that's
In your opinion, greatest fight ever. Was it the Rumble in the Jungle? Was it Sugar Ray Leonard and Hagler? I mean, there's been so many great fights um, over the years. Do you have one in particular that you think, you watch it and you watch it again and you watch it again and it's just the best fight you've ever seen?
but you also have to understand, right? Like some of these fighters, like if you talk to someone like Sean Porter, for example, since we already talked about him, he could tell you every big fight that's ever happened, like ever, and all this stuff. I wasn't a super student of the game. I didn't even know about boxing until I was 19. I don't even think I've ever watched Muhammad Ali fights. I watched Hearns Hagler once. Like I don't I never really watched like I like what boxing did to me in my life. And now if I know someone individually, I watch it and obviously I follow the sport, but like I never really watched boxing like that. And there's a big aspect of boxing that I didn't like, man. Like I don't like hurting other people, right? Because this is a sport. So look at it. You know, Floyd Mayweather got to be Floyd because he had 20 other people that weren't as good as Floyd to get there, right? Your success is always off the back of someone else's failure. So a lot of the time, in my early fights, you have your first 5, 10 fights. You're getting this guy coming from wherever, Dominican Republic, that probably isn't, shouldn't deserve to be in the ring with you, just trying to support his family or whatever. And like, your job is to go hurt this man. And the more you hurt him, the more promotion you get because you might be the next biggest puncher or whatever. And so, like, the brutality of the sport is not something I ever liked. So, like, I wasn't a super student of the game, man. There's a lot of fights that I never watched that I've only heard about. I only heard about after I started boxing. And even when I started boxing, I was just focused on what I was trying to do. So, like, I do watch fights, but to say like what is the best fight I've ever watched, I wouldn't be the person to watch that because I never really watched any of the classic ones. Like Pernell Whitaker was my favorite. I loved watching him fight because I was a lefty, so I would watch and try to emulate him. Um, Paul Spadafora, which obviously he has his issues out of the ring, which then dictated his career, but inside of the ring, that guy was unreal. I mean, he was undefeated just like Floyd, but obviously his troubles outside of the ring took his career away from him. But so I always watch the people that I was trying to emulate or get better. And it's the same thing I did with wrestling. I could watch someone like that. I could then go do it. I could go in the ring. I could do it because I could see it. So all the people I were watching was because that's how I want to fight. I love the way Canelo fights, man. His fundamentals are so, sound, so much experience. But I would say, if I had to pick one classic fight, Hearns Hagler is, it's a war. Like
Yeah.
those guys, like back in that era of Hearns Hagler, Leonard, like that's when those dudes fought. Duran,
Yeah.
like those dudes fought.
Holyfield and
Yeah.
Tyson, those were like when
he bit his ear.
they were incredible. Yeah, when he
Yep.
bit his ear. That was
But I mean,
that was
dude,
ridiculous.
I'm always for the underdog story, like a Buster Douglas. Like I love that story. Like,
Yeah.
what would your
Peter
line be if
McNeely.
you bet on that guy? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Peter McNeely, the proud in Medfield.
yeah, funny story. He used to train at the Framing PAL. The first time I walked into the gym, Peter McNeely was there. And imagine if it could have been different. But Mike Tyson was an animal. I think that was his first time. I mean, even Mike too. Mike Tyson, he's a savage. Like there's so many and that's why it's such a loaded question. There's so many different fighters at different eras when the sport was different.
Right.
It's so hard to be like, who is this the best ever? And that's why I choose Floyd, because inside the ring, he was so well rounded that he did everything well. And so because of that aspect, that's why I choose Floyd as my all-time great. But even now, like you look at someone like Crawford, right? Going up multiple weight classes, trying to fight Canelo. Already in the paperwork, right? Because they got Turk from Saudi Arabia, signed a four-fight deal with Canelo. He's going to fight this guy first. He's going to become unified. And then they're setting him up for in Raider Stadium in September. If Terrence Crawford, who's already a two-division unified champion, comes up from 147 to fight Canelo, beats him, and becomes a three-time unified champ by beating Canelo, goddamn, he's got to be up in the talkings for stuff too, because you guys don't understand. Look at Amir Khan coming up a weight class. When you come up a weight class in a fight sport, even a couple pounds is a lot, right? So when you're coming up 25 pounds or whatever it is to fight someone like Canelo, who's the best of the best of the best, you got to put his name in there. And I know Terrence personally, the way, and I do subscribe to everything he does outside of the ring. He's a good dad. He's a good husband. He takes care of his community. He goes to his kids' wrestling mats. I subscribe to everything Terrence Crawford is doing because he's a good man first and an amazing fighter second. So, I'm rooting for Terrence. I hope he gets that fight, and I hope he does win and I'm going to go. Not only that, I'm going to Vegas to watch that because that's one of those fights that hasn't happened ever, and it might never happen again. It's going to be a spectacle. And so, yeah, I mean, I can sit here and talk about boxing all day. There's so many different fighters for so many different reasons and different fights that had happened or haven't happened or are going to happen. Like, now I'm a student of the game. I do enjoy talking boxing for sure.
That's awesome. Well, this has been awesome. I talk about an education into a sport that, I watch boxing, but would never think weight class stuff and technique and stuff. And I'd love to just sit down with you, Danny, and watch hockey fights all day and have you break them down.
Hey, listen,
that would be awesome.
I love watching fighting. I'm going to bare-knuckle this weekend. There's like not the UFC, but like the one under it, the Sparta or whatever. There's one right here, and I'm going to it. I mean, I am a student of the combat sport. Like now I am. I like watching fights. I just don't like the brutality, sometimes because, I understand what it's like to be on the opposite end. I can't tell you how many times I ended up in the hospital after the fight, getting stitched up, So I understand the brutality of it, but I am a student. I like watching the fights. Hockey fights are cool.
Yeah. I just started watching Game of Thrones, and now I want to go joust someone. I don't know. I know I'm late to the party on the Game of Thrones. I'm late.
Why don't you start with just coming to visit me, and we can start with just riding a horse first before you start getting all the weaponry.
And I promise I won't wear spandex shorts and a tank top. I won't make that
That's
mistake
hilarious.
twice. Oh,
That's
man.
hilarious.
I'd love to come out and ride some horses. We could do that. Well, Danny, this has been awesome. We appreciate you coming on and giving us insight into a sport that, you know, a lot of people don't get insight into. And it's been really cool.
And I appreciate being here, man. Anytime. I love talking shop about whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Gino, Josh, last thoughts before we wrap this up?
Wow, this was excellent, and great insight on just some awareness you brought to the eating disorder in the world of boxing and wrestling and sports in general. And just like you're not going through anything alone. There's always someone else going through it with you. So just reach out and that great story.
Yeah, thanks, Danny.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And hey, before we go, I do have to plug one thing, right? My company now, since I won't ever be back in the ring, is called DO Boxing Academy. And basically what it is it's an enrichment program for at-risk kids. We're in 5 schools now. We're in a couple of mental health facilities. And it's a fitness boxing where there's no contact. We have a programming written by a doctor of psychology, so it addresses social and emotional for these kids. And we have, my wife is a yoga teacher, so we have this company, doboxingacademy.com, and it's my goal that this business is going to be an organization all over the world helping kids just the way the boxing helped me. So I just got to give that plug so that people can know about it. And if you know any organizations, districts, anything that want to contract with us, just go on the website and inquire within.
Awesome.
Love it. Love it. We'll put that in the description on the YouTube. And and if you have socials, we'll link the socials as well. So
yeah,
absolutely.
That's another funny thing. Social media, you should try. Listen, my technology skills. I'm trying to do social media. I got that little blue check mark. The real Danny O'Connor on Instagram. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like half the time it's spelled wrong. The thing comes over my face. It is there's a big learning curve on that too. But the real Danny O'Connor Instagram. Be my friend.
No, we'll give you a follow between the Zebras and my comedy page. I'll follow, and you can follow back, and we'll tag you in all the socials and stuff when we throw out the reels and the clips from this episode. And of course,
I appreciate that.
Speaking of the socials, you got to find us, find Danny and the Zebras online on all the socials, the Instagram. The Zebras are on the TikTok and the Facebook, and also on YouTube. Like and subscribe. We need to smash that, as they say. Josh, is this how they say it in the cool world? Smash that like button and subscribe.
I mean, it's close. It's close.
Trying to learn this shit. All right, good. I get there every little bit at a time. So we want to thank Danny O'Connor again for coming on, and for Josh Dolan and Gino Bender Jr. I'm Mark Riley, and we remind you, next episode we'll have Kerry Frazier, NHL legend. And for now, this is going to wrap up episode 53. Want to thank our sponsor, the Referees Crease, your one-stop shop for all your refereeing needs, and of course AOA Studios, who does all our editing and does all our clips, and is a great place to go tape a podcast or have them work on the technical side of things. And so without too much more talking, thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching, like, and subscribe. We'll see you next time here on the Chirping Zebras.